Hey everyone, welcome back. You guys, it has been so long. I am so happy to be back today. So happy that all of you are here. Thank you for tuning in. Today we have a true crime that we're going to be discussing. It is the Jon Bennet Ramsey case. This case is really popular and I typically don't like to go for like those huge cases because I feel like it's talked about so much and we all kind of know what's going on. But I remember this one specifically as it was happening, and so it kind of meant something to me, I guess. I don't know, because I was so concerned at the time. It's an unsolved case. I think these ones are also very interesting, and I like to kind of revisit these and see if we can, I don't know, I guess just talk about what we think may have happened. So today I have sushi. This is a spicy tuna roll. It has some spicy mayo and sriracha on there. And then I have a calamari salad. I have had this salad before. It doesn't look like much, but man, Flavor Town. It is so, so good. And then I had a couple of sparkling waters here. This one is blackberry lime, and then this one is Jamaica blood orange. I think these are both very good. I believe I've had them both, but I'm feeling this blackberry lime one today. So we're gonna go with that. You guys, if you are curious as to where I have been, if you are a longtime follower of mine or just one of my supporters who has been reaching out to me, thank you so much, by the way, asking me and wondering where I am, I'm going to provide you an explanation, not an explanation, I guess just the reason why I decided to take a month break, where I've been, what I've been doing. So if you're interested in hearing that, you can stay tuned to the end. I'll have a little couple of minute clip where I will explain everything. So let's taste our sushi and our salad, and then we'll get started in this Jon Bennet Ramsey case. Jon Bennet. I'm thinking Jean-Claude. It's Jon Bennet. Man, getting in front of the camera again after so long, it's kind of like, how do I do this? So weird. You can't go wrong with spicy tuna. I have cucumber in here, a little bit of avocado, of course the rice and the nori. So, so good. And some ginger. Oh, they smell so good. Blackberry and lime, yum. These are delicious. They're by far my favorite sparkling waters. I get these at my local grocery store. They sell these at Walmart and convenience stores. You can find them almost anywhere. Okay, let's get started. I guess I should tell you, if you're new here, my name is Kina, of course, and I upload true crime mukbangs every Saturday and relaxing dessert videos on Mondays. This is a great place to be after a long day of work or school or just stress and chaos. You can just come home, kick your shoes off, let your hair down, and just get comfortable. Let's begin. Okay, so let's get a little bit of background on Jon Bennet. She was born in 1990 and she had an older brother named Burke. He was 3 years older than her. The mother's name was Patsy and the father's name is John. Jon Bennet is a unique name. It is the combination of the father John's first and middle name. It's unusual for a little girl, right? Well, as you can see, Jon Bennet was absolutely beautiful, and she was a pageant queen. She's won many titles at only 6 years old. And her mom, Patsy, was also a pageant queen growing up, so the family's been in this pageant lifestyle for some time. So good. Now, the father, John Ramsey, was a businessman who was successful. He had a business that he started called Access Graphics. It was a computer company that was later bought out by an even bigger company, which then made Jon Ramsey a multi-millionaire. A millionaire as in he had a private jet, he had a yacht, He had a mansion and then a vacation home. His mansion was in Boulder, Colorado. It had 15 bedrooms and it was 4 stories. So it was quite big. And he had a vacation home in Michigan. It was on the lake, and that was a place that him and the rest of the family liked to get away. 2 days prior to the crime that took place, the Ramseys had a huge Christmas party at their mansion in Boulder, Colorado. They had like 30-something family and friends that came over, and everything was normal. It was holiday time, everyone was happy and cheerful, there were no problems. Well, on Christmas Day, the Ramseys decided to spend the day at one of their neighbors' house where they would stay and exchange gifts and have dinner. It's said that they left at 8:30 p.m. and on their way home, they stopped off at a few other neighbors' homes to deliver Christmas baskets, whatever that entails, right? Now, they returned home at about 10 p.m. JonBenet was in the back seat asleep, and Jon, the father, took her up to her bedroom and put her in her bed. Patsy then tied her hair up, kissed her goodnight, and left the room. Now, the family was planning a trip to Michigan that very next morning. They had suitcases by the front door and everything. About 2 a.m., one of the neighbors heard what sounded like a child's scream that went on for a couple of seconds. It startled the woman next door, and she woke her husband up, and they listened for a little bit longer. They didn't hear anything else, and they just assumed it was a child's nightmare or something like that and went back to bed. A little side note, if you ever hear anyone, especially a child, screaming in the middle of the night, maybe make an anonymous call to the police and just report it, because you might save somebody's life. I have a story time that I'm going to be telling here in the near future of the time an intruder came into my home and I was screaming bloody murder and no one came. Neighbors didn't report anything. So I'm going to get into that maybe even in the next video. So the neighbors went back to sleep. About 5:30 that next morning, Patsy was awakened by Jon getting in the shower. They were planning on their trip to Michigan, right? She gets dressed, she goes downstairs, and she sees papers at the bottom of the stairway. And as she begins to read it, she realizes that it's a ransom note. And so about 5:52 a.m., she calls 911 in a hysterical state of mind. I'm not going to play the 911 call because I think it's just so highly disturbing, but I will link it in the description below if you guys want to listen to the actual 911 call. She's explaining to dispatch that there's a ransom note, that her daughter's been kidnapped. She's telling them the address, telling them to please hurry. She's just hysterical. So dispatch is trying to calm her down. They're letting her know that police are on their way. And then at the end of the call, you hear dispatch saying, "Patsy, Patsy," 3 times, and Patsy doesn't say anything. And then very quietly you hear voices, and one of the voices says, "What did you do?" or "What did you find?" and a couple of other things. And so police were able to focus in on those voices, and it sounds like Patsy, Jon, and Burke, who is the 9-year-old brother. So keep that in mind. I guess she thought she hung up. Now, the ransom note was strange in a few ways. It read that it was a terrorist group who was demanding $118,000. Now, $118,000 was very close to the Christmas bonus that Jon himself received the year prior before he sold his company. So police were thinking maybe it was a work colleague, somebody who knew his finances, who was demanding that specific amount of money. There were misspellings, mispunctuations. It was extremely long. It was 2.5 pages. 350 words to be exact, and a typical ransom note would entail about 50 words or less. But the gist of the ransom note was saying, if you want to see JonBenet again, have the $118,000, don't contact the police if you want to see her alive, and that they will be calling the next morning between 8 and 10 a.m. Now, the ransom note was written on a notepad that belonged to Patsy that was from the house, from inside the house, along with a pen that belonged to someone in the house. And it also had a practice ransom letter. It was written in Sharpie. And so there were just several really strange things about this ransom note. So we'll get back to that. 7 minutes after the 911 call was received, police arrived at the Ramseys' home. Police tapped their phone lines because they're waiting for this call, right? And they did this quick check throughout the home. Nothing too thorough, right? It's a kidnapping. Nobody expected to really find anything in the house. Burke, the 9-year-old brother, was removed from the home, and the $118,000 was collected and ready to give to whoever it is that kidnapped Jon Bennet. But 8 a.m. came along, 9 a.m. came along, 10 a.m. came along, and no terrorist call. There was nobody to collect the money. Nobody ever called. So now police were suspicious, right? Because they're like, somebody wants this money, but they're not calling to collect the money. And that's when police thought maybe this could be a hoax ransom. And so they went upstairs to Jon Benet's room, they taped it off, and it became an official crime scene. Now, this is back in 1996. I'm so sorry for not bringing that up, you guys. This was the day after Christmas, so it was December 26th, 1996. And in the mid-90s, protocol was different than it is today, and there were a lot of things that went wrong. The Boulder, Colorado police received a lot of heat for the way that this case was handled and how things weren't done as well as it could have been, and maybe this wouldn't have been an unsolved case. During all the hysteria and all the chaos that was going on, Patsy called some family friends, and of course they came over to show support. People were touching things in the home. The victim advocate people came out to the home. Their job is to help detectives do their job and keep the victims calm and kind of proceed with a normal routine to kind of help things along in terms of everybody staying calm. They made breakfast for the family, they cleaned up, so there's a lot of touching and moving of things because again, people thought that this was a kidnapping. All of that commotion really disrupted potential evidence. Jon also remained very calm. He continued with his normal morning routine while waiting for this ransom call. He checked his mail, and the lead detective thought that that was very strange, and she's like, why is he checking his mail? Where'd the mail come from? Which I thought was strange, that she's wondering why he's carrying on as normal, because the victim advocate team was there in the home encouraging them to carry on as normal. So anyway, Jon also called his pilot. He had booked this trip to Michigan for that morning, wanted to make sure the plane was ready so that the family could go. He didn't want to be there. And police had to pull him aside and say, no, Jon, that's not possible. There's a situation here and no one's going to leave. So some people thought that it was really strange, that they thought Jon was trying to get out of the situation, but in all reality, he was just trying to carry on as normal as directed. So I don't really know why that would be suspicious to anyone. Jon also made a call to his public relations and to his lawyer, formed a legal team, did all that because I think he knew that's probably the best thing to do in this situation. So it wasn't until early afternoon that police believed that this could be a hoax ransom note, and that's when they taped off Jon Benet's bedroom and made it an official crime scene. Now the lead detective finally said, hey, let's do a thorough search around the home. Now this is a huge 15-room, 4-story home, right? So the lead detective had another detective and Jon, the father, go around the home and doing a search. So Jon and the detective went around the home and searched each room carefully, in closets and everywhere on each level. And when they got to the basement, the detective went in one direction and Jon went in another. He went to the wine cellar. He opened the door, and that's where he found Jon Bennet. He screamed out loud, "My baby!" And he ran to Jon Bennet. Her mouth was covered in duct tape. Her arms were bound, and she had a choking wire, some sort of device around her neck that she was strangled with. And then she had like a white blanket over her abdominal. So Jon runs to his daughter, he grabs her, he starts going up the stairs, and then the lead detective sees Jon carrying little Jon Bennet, and she ordered him to put the body down. So he puts the body down. Patsy sees him. She runs over to her daughter and embraces her and is touching her, and just the crime scene is ruined at this point. There's so much contamination with the body being moved, and Jon removed the duct tape from her mouth. You know, first reaction, you see your child, you want to get everything bad off of them. She was clearly deceased, but I guess you just can't help but want to fix them and just love them. So that was the police department's error for allowing a parent to search the house. What if you find a body? Of course, they're going to want to touch it and contaminate evidence. So this was now a homicide case. Back to the ransom note right quick. Police did think that it was a hoax because there were no fingerprints on the note besides Patsy's and then the authorities who were handling it. They considered the rough draft or the practice note that was written. They considered the fact that it was on Patsy's notepad and all of that. So now Michael Baden is a board certified forensic pathologist who consulted with both sides of the case. And he said that he had never seen a note like this in his 60 years of experience. And he believed that this note was not written by an outside stranger, that it had to have been someone in the home. A federal court had ruled that it was highly unlikely that Patsy wrote the note, citing 6 different professional handwriting experts. But these experts were without credentials, and so the court really didn't take much into consideration, considering these were self-proclaimed experts. So now each of the Ramseys, Jon, Patsy, and brother Burke, they all provided handwriting samples, blood, hair samples, and everything to police. And Jon and Patsy were interviewed for more than 2 hours, but little brother Burke wasn't interviewed until about 3 weeks after this homicide. I feel like if they needed to interview the child, they should have done it like on the spot. Now here's where the evidence comes into play, and this is where things get really interesting. I'm gonna get cleaned up and I'll be right back. Now, the autopsy revealed that JonBenet had been killed due to strangulation and a fracture to the skull. So she was hit over the head with something. She was strangled with a garrote that was created with nylon cord. There was also pineapple that was found in her intestines, and Burke had fingerprints on a bowl of pineapple the night prior. So there's speculation, some people thinking that it could have possibly been the brother. Jon and Patsy both say that they did not feed JonBenet any pineapple the night before this happened, that they put her straight to bed. Clearly Burke had some pineapple, and there's some talk about maybe JonBenet taking some pineapple, Burke getting upset, hitting her on the head, it caused some fracture, and like the parents tried to cover it up. There's all sorts of speculation, but we won't get into all that. We're just going to talk about what we know. And although there was no evidence of forced intercourse, I want to be careful with my words on here. Assault could not be fully ruled out due to a vaginal injury that was found on JonBenet's body. A pathologist confirmed and recorded that her vaginal area had been wiped with a cloth. Forensic investigators found DNA on JonBenet's underwear that belonged to 2 different people. They sent this DNA evidence to the FBI and they ran it through their records, and it was an unidentified male. They couldn't figure out who this DNA belonged to. Just to fast forward right quick, in 2016, when technology became a little more advanced, a more sensitive forensic test was done, and it revealed that the original DNA contained genetic markers from 2 people. Now, what's interesting about this, do you remember the O.J. Simpson trial where Dr. what's his name? Henry Lee was in charge of the DNA stuff? He actually studied the DNA in JonBenet's case as well, and he found underwear very well could have had DNA from the manufacturer process. And he actually proved this in court by taking an unopened bag of underwear and testing it. It actually showed DNA on the unopened underwear. So then that ruled out any of the Ramsey family members, because the whole reason why they weren't considered suspects any longer was because of the DNA found on her underwear. So Boulder police originally focused their attention on the parents, Jon and Patsy, but in 1997, there were over 1,600 people in their index, for people of interest in the case. Jon, Patsy, and Burke were all ruled out and were no longer suspects in the case. But there were a few other suspects that I'm going to talk about right now, and some of it is so creepy. So really quick, a local man named Bill McReynolds visited the house 2 days just before the homicide, and he would occasionally dress up as Santa Claus and visit the children, and he was, like a sweet old man, right? His own daughter was kidnapped in the early 70s, and his wife wrote in a play about a story of a girl who was taken advantage of in a sick way and kidnapped and then killed in a basement. Now, it's said that Bill felt very close to JonBenet. JonBenet had gifted him a vial of glitter, and Bill kept that close to his heart. So much so that when he had heart surgery, he brought that vial of glitter with him and told his wife that if he were to pass on, he would like this vial of glitter mixed in his ashes. It's different, right? But there was no evidence to even consider him being related to the crime at all. So he was ruled out. Next is Gary Oliva. He was a neighbor to the Ramsey home. In the year 2000, Gary was arrested for separate drug charges, and he was carrying a backpack. In that backpack was a photo of JonBenet, and police were asking him why he had this photo. His response was that her story deeply touched him. He felt like he wanted to build a shrine, monument in her honor, so he has something to remember her by. One of Gary's friends told police that Gary had called him the day after JonBenet's murder and said, "I hurt a little girl. I hurt a little girl," and then hung up. Records show that no other little girls in the Boulder area were reported as hurt, missing, or anything like that the night JonBenet was murdered. And the strangulation method that was used on JonBenet was the same method that Gary used on his own mother when he attempted to strangle her. Coincidence? Gary was later arrested in 2016 for bad child photos. You know what I'm saying? That's why he had that picture of JonBenet in his backpack, because he was a sick sicko. So the last suspect is a divorced father and elementary school teacher, John Carr. You guys remember John Carr? He didn't become a suspect to this case until nearly 10 years after JonBenet's case began. And he confessed to her murder via email. A journalist and professor was emailing back and forth with this guy, trying to get the scoop, trying to make him comfortable for 4 years, and finally got the confession. Now, in these emails, he used similar wording that was in the Ransom Note. He confessed to being in love with JonBenet, confessed to hitting her over the head with a flashlight. But in 2008, John Carr was found in Bangkok, Thailand. He was fleeing from child bad photo stuff on the internet, you know what I'm saying? So even though they caught him there, he wasn't charged for JonBenet's homicide because the DNA didn't match up. Former Boulder Police Chief Mark Beckner stated that John Carr's confessions didn't even match up with the evidence at the crime scene. He wasn't in the state of Colorado at the time. They know this because they just did a little bit of routine checking, and he was in the state of Georgia at the time, and photos were even taken of him. So he was just a sick sicko who wanted to confess to something that he didn't even do because he was in love with a child. So yeah, the crime scene was just so badly tampered with, and then DNA testing wasn't all that great in 1996. One detective thought it was the dad, one thought it was Patsy the mom, another thought it was the little brother Burke, and they didn't want him to get taken away, so the parents there's so many different conspiracies, but it remains unsolved. What do you guys think? I remember the exact time that this was going on. It was very, very sad, so rest in peace, little JonBenet. The brother Burke did an interview that was very strange. He did an interview with Dr. Phil, and he just had that very nervous smile, very calm tone. I don't think that interview was taken very well. Yeah, he came forward like 20 years later to talk about his side of the story. I hope you're all having a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much for watching. And now I'm just gonna insert a little clip of, it's actually me talking before I started eating, and I'm gonna explain why I did that, but I'm gonna enter it here next. You guys have a great rest of your day. I'll see you next time. Hey, okay, so for those of you who are still sticking around, thank you so much for caring enough to hear what I have to say. I guess the only explanation that I really have, not that I have to give an explanation, but the only report, the reason for my absence is medical. Of course, shocker, right? I have been struggling a bit with my blood sugar, maintaining a even glucose level, I guess. I have been told since I was 9 years old that I'm hypoglycemic, and I went to an endocrinologist who told me yesterday that I am not hypoglycemic. And the way we determined that is, if you don't know, hypoglycemia is a state of which your blood sugar or blood glucose drops too low and you feel confused and dizzy, you get pale in the face, you get like shaky, you're weak, and you just, it's like, I need food, I have to eat, and I have to eat right now. And that usually happens when your blood sugar is below 70, so 50s and 60s, you've got low blood sugar. So I was prescribed a meter where you prick your finger and you squeeze a little blood out and you test it on the blood strip, you stick it in the meter and it tells you what your blood sugar is. And when I felt weak and dizzy and irritable, my blood sugar was only an 84. So normal is 70 to 110. So my sugar wasn't low, I just felt like I was. So I tested this 6 times a day for 10 days. And I gave those results to my doctor, and he was like, you're not hypoglycemic. And I was really shocked at first because for 30 years I thought that I was. And I was experiencing the symptoms of it. I'm like, how could I not be hypoglycemic if I'm shaky and irritable and weak? And sometimes I sit down and I don't have the strength to stand. And he said to me that those are symptoms of hypoglycemia, but when you look at the actual number, I'm in a normal range. I have conditioned my body to eat a certain way so many times per day for so long that if I don't continue that eating, I have symptoms of hypoglycemia. Is that strange? Have you guys heard anything like that? I was astonished. I was just really quiet at first, and then I kind of got irritated at him. I got a little upset. You know, of course I'm not rude, but he's like, do you understand what I'm saying? And I said, no, I don't understand. Like, I need you to help me understand. I just really think I was in a state of shock to think that I've had a disease my whole life and I never had the disease. Anyway, it was good news and I'm healthy. So that's good to know. And he said that he can either prescribe me a pill that will help me digest carbs easier in the morning or whatever. I take the pill in the morning, but there are side effects like bloating and reflux and things like that. And I was like, no, I don't want to deal with that. I always opt for the non-medication option. And the other option was to condition my body. So now I'm eating a low carb diet. This kind of explains my absence, right? Like I couldn't be eating sugar and carbs and things like that while I was testing my blood 6 times a day for so long. Now, granted, I was gone for about a month now, but I really just wasn't feeling well, and I had to make those doctor's appointments, and I didn't want to continue doing what I knew was making me feel bad, which was consuming so much sugar, or what I've learned now, consuming so many carbs, which turns into sugar, right? I have to condition my body. He recommended that I start with a 24-hour fast, which is like a reset for my body. No food, no water. And I actually looked into fasting, the proper way to do it, prolonged fasting, how to properly break a fast, all of that. I've been watching a lot of videos from certified individuals who are trained in this area. So I'm gonna start fasting in a safe way. I'm gonna do it once a month. I'm gonna try a 24 to 48 hour fast, and then I'm just gonna continue a low carb diet. Now, I wanted to film this while I was feeling the way I'm feeling right now, so that this is completely like raw footage and you guys can understand in real time what I'm feeling like. Not good. I do not feel good. I'm so used to consuming so many carbs and eating every 3 to 4 hours. Otherwise, I'm sweaty like I am right now. I have a headache like I have right now. I'm irritable like I am right now. So this is definitely a process for me. He doesn't want me to eat keto diet because that's too extreme to start with. He just wants me to eat low carb, so not quite keto, just cut the carbs and of course the sugar. So does that mean I'm still going to be eating cake in these videos? Yes, I'm still going to eat a dessert. I'm planning on anyway twice a month, just eating a little slice, and the rest of my life, right, eating very clean and green, plant-based, low carb. So that's what I've been doing. I've been trying to get my health back in order. And sometimes you have to pull away from all eating to gauge where you are and then find out where you need to be. That's it. I was so shocked yesterday, you guys. I was upset for several hours. It took me so long to calm down. Imagine being told that you have a disease your entire life and then not having it. It's such a shock, even though it was good news. Hey, you're healthy, you don't have this. It just kind of made me feel crazy. Like, well, if I don't have it, then why am I feeling like this? Well, my body is still producing the same symptoms. So I have to condition it to be able to function without eating every 3 to 4 hours. So I'm excited for this. I'm excited to start feeling good again. The body is going to be under a certain amount of stress, which is why I'm experiencing headache and sweating, and I feel a little bit weak, but not too bad. Thank you guys so much for caring. Those of you who have checked on me via Instagram, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for caring enough to reach out to me and just check on me, see how I'm doing. I thought that was very sweet, very thoughtful. I appreciate you guys. And now you know where I've been. I hope you are all doing well. I hope you're taking care of yourself, your mental health, all of that. You are what is most important. Without you, the world is not the same. If you're not already, you can check me out on social media where I post positivity and things about my everyday life. It's interesting. You should check it out. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.